Hello everybody, my name is David here at Naʻau Pono Wellness, and today we're going to talk about the NanoVi and our friends over at ENG3. Thank you so much for this shirt that I get to sport here at Naʻau Pono Wellness. Super comfortable on a day like this where the weather's kind of funky, but here we are today, right? So now if you folks have seen the past post, we did talk about what the NanoVi included, and if you haven't, it's this unique device here that is designed to address oxidative stress. And you folks have heard this word before, probably thrown around in so many different ways. But what's neat is that using this type of machine, helps to address it directly and the free radical damage that's associated with it, right? It produces this biosignaling mechanism that helps, basically cue the body to fold these proteins a lot more consistently so that we can repair a lot more efficiently, right? And it's through this exclusion zone water, right? EZ water, and also known as the fourth phase. And this was research that's been done by Dr. Gerald Pollack. He actually wrote this pretty amazing book. And I also was fortunate to hear the story from Rowena, who is one of the co-owners of the NanoVi or ENG3, along with Han Zhang. And what's cool though is that it explains in detail, if you feel the need to get nerdy, it gets really down to the science that's involved with it, right? Amazing stuff. I got to sit in on actually his presentation at the biohacking conference kind of a while back, and I can't remember if it was still the Bulletproof conference at the time, but regardless, the information that was given to me at the time, shared with us at the time, just made so much sense to me, and how I wanted to approach healing, right, at a cellular level. And, it matched so well, with some of the things that I was wanting to do. Actually, this was one of the things that really, kind of catapulted me into being interested in integrating, biohacking equipment, right, within how I choose to heal or take care of my clients and patients. And so, I'll walk you through the story of how that went through, but, just to kind of answer the very common questions that revolve around how our NanoVi or the NanoVi here that we use here is used. Everybody always asks, like, what is oxidative stress, right? And people may have heard things such as, like, on the post I mentioned reactive oxygen species, right? Molecules that act as the free radicals, right? And harming the cells, causing cell damage, right? And as a result from oxidative stress, it creates this disorganization, right, of how these proteins fold, right? And it can contribute to so much metabolic dysfunction or inflammation and show up as so many different things, right, that we may not want, that really kind of pull us down, if you will, right, and limit us, right, from becoming the most resilient that we would want to be. And as I said, like, this discovery of EZ water, this exclusion zone water, was kind of like eye-opening for me. I was like, oh my gosh, a lot of the things that Dr. Gerald Pollack was describing to me just seems so revolutionary. It totally changes the way that we look at how water is living, but it's also something that is so giving, and tuning into how much water is part of us as healing, tends to be lost, right? And so I just wanted to make sure, that I gave, honor and respect where it's due. But more importantly, we're super excited, to have this as, a standard type of equipment that we like to offer people within our wellness programs here, right? And so they have different models, but the ones that the one that I committed to was the NanoVi Exo, which a lot of the treatment sessions, or all the treatment sessions, are typically 15 minutes, and that's where you're going to get, you know, a lot done in a very short period of time, right? Your ability to recover or repair, right, or giving you the base of what is necessary for repair and recovery. You know, so what's cool though, if you don't mind me sharing with you folks, was how I was introduced to NanoVi, right, and kind of backpedaling to where it all started. This was during one of my first biohacking conferences. It was the Bulletproof conference at the time, and you know, I arrived on a red eye, and I was very, very tired, but I was excited at the same time. So I felt pretty wired, I remember. I knew that I was having coffee that morning because that's what, you know, it was all about at the time, right? And so I got a coffee, felt great, and then I started walking around because they had like an early opening at the time. And I was able to check out the different vendors. And I was looking at all these, you know, they had IV drips there, they had the hyperbaric chamber guys, OxyHealth, as well as E&G. And this was, I think this was just in the beginning stages of when them talking about Bulletproof Labs. Actually, if I want to stand corrected, this wasn't the first one. This was the second one I went to, because this was just before they, you know, they transitioned, as I remember. Because I remember meeting another person that was from Hawaii that time, and they couldn't believe that another person from Hawaii was there. Anyway, that's a different story. Coming back to how I met the folks over at NanoVi, I met Rowena Gates, her daughter first, actually. I didn't really meet Rowena until a little bit later. I think she was just preparing for a talk on the NanoVi device itself, but more importantly, the research that's behind it. And Elise was working, her daughter was working in the booth, and it was kind of a neat experience because, you know, I just wanted to try out what was going on, you know, with this machine, and I sat in front of it. They had us sit in front of it just to experience it, and I couldn't quite figure out what I was feeling. I couldn't really describe it in words other than I started to feel a little bit more energy, right? I felt a little bit more awake. Now, I only had coffee at that time. I didn't really have anything that seems, you know, revolutionary. Like, to be honest with you, this is how I was able to tell that this was really impactful, was I experienced it on its own, right, other than the coffee I had that morning. And then I believe the following day I did an IV, then also did this, and noticed how it basically drove everything in a little bit deeper. I noticed a quicker response, in other words, right? And how alert I wanted to be that day. It was a simple Myers cocktail, I believe, but I think it was a glutathione push. But as I did this, you know, with that IV and push, I did it after. I noticed how alert I was, you know, and how I was able to hold it for a little bit longer. You know, the sensation of, you know, I mean, IVs work directly, obviously, and I always get a good, you know, a meaningful buzz on it. But using the NanoVi kind of opened my eyes on just other things that could be out there that, you know, is able to tap into the healing element within ourselves, right? And so, anyway, I did also try in a future conference, you know, kind of fast forwarding from that experience with Elise, was trying it right after, or I'm sorry, just before the hyperbaric chamber. And I used a similar machine like this. I think I went into the larger model of this, but anyway, I did do a chamber session shortly after this. And I could compare it, you know, my sensation of what it felt like with the IV and this, excuse me, and then doing this in the chamber. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, You know, these are things that I would want to make sure I have, you know, within my practice. Like this would be great, you know, to implement, and you know, we can get people on their journey to health a lot more efficiently, right? Now, you know, in Hawaii, these aren't very common things, right? So, you know, what I wanted to do was just provide an ability to educate, you know, my clients and patients that these things actually exist, right? Um, but more importantly, just provide an opportunity to experience it, right? Um, you know, there's so many things out there outside of the traditional system that can also help you, right, on your journey. So, you know, we use it in so many different ways, right? From that experience that I, you know, personally, you know, went through with using the NanoVi, you know, I wanted to share that experience, you know, with everyone else, right? Now, what I want to do is also, you know, show just a quick tutorial, if you will, on how this machine really works, right? And you know, first of all, we turn it on, right? And what's cool is that like all of these different colors that come out, right? We choose red mainly because actually it's much more pleasing to me. But you know, as we kind of near towards the late afternoon, I want to make sure that we're not creating, you know, some sort of disruption in how people absorb light. But so many different colors you can choose from on here on the color spectrum, right? There's so many things to be said in regards to how color is used for therapy, right? But anyway, one of the things I enjoy about this machine is just how calming it can be. And it's not even just from the administration of, you know, oxygen coming into us, right? Coming into our system. And it can be, you know, this airstream, in other words, this humidified airstream that comes through. You can take it in like this, right? And it just looks like a hose. But we also change these out, you know, just for sanitary reasons. But as long as you stay within a couple inches of it, you're going to get a good amount just straight in like this, right? And the other method of doing this would be through a cannula. And that's what we typically use here, mainly because I like the results when it goes in directly, very passive, right? People can move around and do other things simultaneously, but it also provides an ability for us to implement other types of modalities simultaneously, right? Or, you know, even in the realm of manual therapy. You know, I am a manual therapist, you know, at heart, really. You know, and I like to assess patients and make sure that I treat them in the most comprehensive way before I do anything in regards to, you know, fixing structures and whatnot, right? So, you know, what I like to do sometimes, you know, it really depends on the location, you know, is use this in combination with some different manual things like in their shoulder, possibly in the neck. But other than that, we commonly would use this as well on a, you know, as a separate service. You know, people can come in here and experience this as a separate service on its own. And we have actually a good number of clientele that come in here. They travel from all kinds of different places. People can find us on the website, I believe, too. I've had people that actually contacted ENG too and asked, does anybody else have a NanoVi machine here? And I believe it's gaining popularity. I think there's a couple other institutions here on island that do it as well. I remember me being the first one, you know, to hold this machine here a good while back. But it's good to know that, you know, other places on here on island are doing it. I have also helped other people acquire these, you know, if people are interested in purchasing one of these. And so, anyway, what I like about this is also the calming effect that we get, not just from bringing in this, but it's also like kind of this bubbling that kind of occurs here within this machine. You know, it's kind of like this background noise that's just very calming. You know, this vibration that's just so calming. Anyway, we consistently use this machine to maximize what recovery can look like. And so much stress that can have an effect on our immune system, our nervous system, right? Our brain especially. I've covered treatment with taking care of some clients that have traumatic brain injury history, as well as concussions. But any kinds of things that occur within your body, this is a good base and a good start, right? And the sessions are cheap. They're relatively low cost, right? People usually buy in packages here, but it can be as low as $20. Just for you to kind of sit here and enjoy. You guys can read a book, or as I mentioned earlier, we also do packages where we can combine the use of different technology together, right? Now, there has to be intention with this, and when you book a session with us here, we can help you with figuring out what that is, right? The idea is not to just put any kind of things together and hope for the best. We want to make sure that we're very strategic and intentional about what we're choosing, to get you on your journey. Yeah. And so, what we like to do, or what we've gaining popularity on also, is creating more of a preventative approach, right? And this is a great way of kind of building up your stores, right? So your cells are ready, right? And what this can do is it'll prevent a lot of these negative outcomes, yeah, that can have an effect on aging, right? And show up in our movement, right? Inflammation that happens within our joints, or especially our gut, right? But as I mentioned, I may not have mentioned, but I'm going to mention it now, is how it shows up on your skin, right? And so many of us may not know this, but our nervous system, our body itself, gives us so many signals, but how much of us are really connecting with that, right? And we want to make sure that we take that opportunity, right, in those moments. And when we look in the mirror, what are we noticing, right? Whether it be large movement patterns, right, when we're working out, or even just practicing any type of movement practice. Also, when we're washing our face, or getting ourselves ready for our day, what are we noticing that shows up on our skin too? It gives us information, right? Again, using something like this can help and create a foundation, a solid foundation on your journey, on getting there, whatever that looks like, right? So what we like to do, as I mentioned earlier, with other types of tech, like we do a type of stacking, like a biostacking is actually what we coined the term as. And this is literally just to maximize, right, the results within your short or long-term goals of what we're doing here, right? A good example is how a number of clients like to use this machine just before we go into the chamber, right? Latest research that's been done, talks about how exclusion zone water, right, has been noticed after sessions, going into the chamber, right? Exclusion zone water that basically lines, right, our cells inside there after going inside here, right? I mean, these were studies that were done recently, and it's super exciting. Like, it lines the walls of our arteries, and like, this is great. This is great news, right? So they also had other studies that have talked about how the combination of using the NanoVi and using the hyperbaric chamber, one after another, can literally increase the amount of oxygen that gets into your cells so that you can repair faster, right? And it's not even just one area, right? It may address the most, perhaps the inflamed area, right? But we can get so sophisticated with how we're using different pieces of technology, and we're not reliant completely on it, but they're great tools to use, right? And again, we have to be very, very intentional about what we use. We've also had people use red light in combination with this, getting amazing results with skin, you know, approaching it from the anti-aging point of view, but also using red light to help reduce inflammation to like different joints. Like we have different red light units here that help that specifically. And then when we're combining it using this, people get pretty good results. Some other things that we do too, we do have patients that go on a vibration plate while using this. It might seem a little odd, but there is good research out there showing how frequencies and vibration tend to create, you know, sort of this attraction or this magnet kind of phenomenon where, you know, these cells really get attracted to this vibration, you know. Well, more specifically, our biosignaling using this in combination with the vibration plate help to target, you know, these specific areas that we would want to create that protein folding, that consistent protein folding, right? So that we can repair a lot faster and recover much faster. Using vibration plates, you know, can be a very, you know, you can approach it from a very sophisticated way, but again, it has to be very intentional, especially when we're looking at what desired effect are we looking for, right? Whether it be reducing, you know, or improving lymphatic drainage, reducing inflammation, right? Or getting more proprioceptive input. It's a little bit different. We want to make sure that we're intentional with what we're using here and we're stacking with another, okay? People have also been using, been wanting or requesting using this along with our pulse machine, which is an awesome combination too. Using pulse electromagnetic frequencies, as our previous posts have talked about. You may have noticed my son on it. He actually recovered really well, completely got rid of his headache, and I could contribute it to the combination of how we used it on his, to the side of his head, as well as using the NanoVi here, right? So those are just examples of how we're using this type of tech here, and just touching the surface, if you will. So again, if you folks have any questions on the NanoVi itself, this is NanoVi week. We're just calling it that, but you know, we like to call it NanoVi day every day. But this week we're going to highlight, you know, this amazing device, you know, from our friends over at ENG. Thank you so much, you know, for providing this equipment, but more importantly, all the research that supports what you guys do and what you guys have put out there, right? Thank you again so much. Aloha, everybody. If you have any questions, send me a DM. Come check out our Instagram and Facebook, as always, and come follow us on YouTube, Naʻau Pono Wellness, right? We're going to have a lot of videos that are coming up that are going to bring up these types of things, but so many more things to come, you know. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Aloha.